inside of the lug mounts, or the lug screws on the inside. So like you take off the head, and then you kind of pull these bands, take the screws off, put it around, whatever.
But does the mic come off of it pretty easily? Oh, okay.
It's too much on me.
If we're red, we are in focus.
This means in focus?
Yeah.
Interesting. This is called a camera? I don't know where to look.
You can just hold it. This is nonchalant. Why isn't anything ever chalant?
Yeah, you never hear that.
Why did they put the audio meter right behind the HDMI hookup?
Tiny couch. I told you it's awkward. It's just naturally awkward. Hey everybody, Resident Loser Jeremy here. I've got my old friend Kelson sitting with me on the tiny couch. It's awkward as always. So,
Loser.
Tell us a little bit about what you do, your dreams and your hopes and your ambitions.
Whoa, my dreams and my hopes and my ambitions? I dream to continue to do what I do in my daily life every day. So I hope I'm not like physically maimed or something like that. Like I hope I'm continually able to do what I do every day. That's probably my biggest dream. My hopes, I hope that we solve world hunger. We solve the climate. All that stuff. I don't understand why people are so mean, dude. Like, I hope to be, literally this sounds really dumb, but I hope to be like a light for the world as far as like being more kind than mean. I like to joke, and some of them are pretty mean.
I like that joke.
Yeah, but sometimes I am being mean. That's my hope. What was the other one?
Ambitions.
Ambitions. Ooh, yeah, just to continually. I don't even know, man. That's a good one. Just take over the world. Just dominate the didgeridoo charts.
So you've made your living in music. Is this a good assumption? You've made your living in music for some time.
Yes.
What do you think is, one, weird about that, two, awesome about that, or three, you still can't even fathom why that works?
Ooh, yeah. If I sit down now, if I were to sit down now and think about it, I look back and see little like, oh yeah, well this worked out and this worked out and this worked out. Like I have like the history of looking back at it. Like it's not as weird to me anymore because it's sort of a gradual thing. I guess it's always gradual because when you're first starting out, you're kind of like, I want to do this full time. And then you don't ever really, because I was like working teaching jobs, like I was teaching music lessons, worked at a pharmacy for a few years. So it was sort of a transition, you know what I mean, more towards doing it full time, but it never felt like a moment where this is it, like I made it, you know what I mean, I'm doing it full time, I'm doing it full time right now. Like,
so was there ever a moment where you kind of had a step back and you're like, this has been working well, I do this, I guess this is what I do now?
Yeah, it was definitely after the first like biggest record that I ever had come out. Like, oh, okay, so I probably can do this. That was so fast. It was so much so fast. There wasn't really ever any really, wasn't like a lot of build up to it. It just kind of happened. Leave the job, leave school, start doing it on my own in my room, essentially, bedroom, and then full time. Like
I remember you coming by years ago. You're like, I gotta show you something I'm working on, and then you just hear like a bed frame squeaking.
Yeah, that was it. It's called Bad. It had a bed in it. Bed by Wale and Rihanna.
Did you guys have any idea it would do what it did in the moment?
We just really, really liked it. I remember like she came over, and at that point in our relationship, I was just recording for her and she was sending things to him. Just like little verses or, like little hooks or whatever. And then she was like, you do music, right? Let's do a song together. Because at that point I'd been playing like in bands, like with like 8 dudes and stuff like that. And I'd never really tried R&B. And that's the first one, well, second full song that we did together. At the end of the night after we made it that day, I remember standing in like the doorway to my room and we just like listened to it. It was 5 or 6 times straight, just standing up. And we loved it, we loved it. And so I remember she was like, this is gonna be like a problem. I was like, cool, that sounds awful, but I think you mean it in a good way.
This is gonna be a problem.
We really, really liked it. It was like one of my favorite probably done at the time.
And if you guys wanna go check it out, the song is...
It's called Bad by Wale.
Go listen to it, come back to this video. There's some context for you.
Funny story with the bed thing, the squeaking, which by the way, you're gonna, after you come back, like, oh, the bed squeaks are way too loud. They are way too loud because I didn't mix the final, I mixed the sort of everything else. I get a call from Atlantic Records and like just from the, you know, the big man, the guy behind the curtain at Atlantic, and he was like, hey, is that bed sample the sample from Some Cut, which is an old Trillville song, which I wasn't allowed to listen to. A sample of Lil Jon allegedly in the studio rocking in a chair. And they put it in the song. And we sampled that as our bed sound for when we released it on like YouTube and SoundCloud and all that stuff before it got big. So I was like, yep, that is the Some Cut sample. And he's like, well, we really don't want to have to pay to get it cleared because then no one, you know, it takes a cut of everybody's if we got to pay for a sample. I was like, okay, yeah. I was like, I think I could replace it with something. And I was like, okay, I either have to make a bed sound or I have to already have one. And you don't have to put this in your video if you don't want to. But I was like, okay, I do know that I have this video of that I shot with a fine young lady where we shot a home movie of us having and it was on one of my old beds, and it had, I just went through the audio and found and I found and I just like affected it so it was like kind of louder because it was kind of subtle, looped it, sent it back. I didn't tell anybody about that. And he was like, sounds great, we're putting it on the record. I was like, so that's awesome. So it went out that way, but then when they mix it, when they put that in, it was like, and I was just like, that's kind of loud, but so it's supposed to be more subtle, but that's the full story with it. And I didn't tell anybody that until
that makes the whole song make a lot more sense.
It's pretty funny.
Like, do you see other things in your career? Do you see that propelling a whole lot of other things, like other relationships and other stuff like
big time? Almost actually all of the like bigger, maybe more visible things I've done since then have almost all stemmed from that. There have been probably 2 or 3 different like NBA players that have looked up like Indianapolis producer, and apparently on something, I haven't tried this, basically they found my name through that and wanted to start label, and so they would have me like come in and either kind of help with songs or produce actual songs, or like maybe they had other producers and they needed like sort of just like some guidance or something, you know what I mean? But they were like all Pacers dudes. Yeah, I've done that probably three or 4 times. And so that all stemmed from that. And then how I ultimately got the Band Perry drumming gig was from that too. Their creative director at the time, his name's Owen, a great buddy of mine now, found me the exact same way, I think. Was looking at producers in the indie area, and he wanted me to kind of do sound design, kind of sound production for them originally. That's how I got looped up with them. So I was doing all their backtracks for some shows and like, you know, just sound design stuff for live stuff. And then when they kind of retooled to kind of go a little bit, just slightly away from country, they're like, hey, you play drums. Because at that point I'd kind of been around them for a while, a couple of years, and so I got the gig. Ultimately, through the dots, yes, that is how I got that.
So it seems like at every level of the industry, and you shouldn't be too concerned about where you're starting, because it seems like this is a common story. People talk on every level. So it doesn't matter if you're at the highest level or the lowest level. Yep. If you do good work, people talk.
Absolutely.
If you do work, people talk.
Yep.
So even if you're in the spotlight at a certain point, like if you're doing bad work, you wouldn't have had all this other stuff happen.
Correct. And then you can't hold gigs either if you do shoddy work either. So it's like, yeah, I mean, people aren't gonna release, either they're not gonna release a song, they're gonna fire you from the tour, all of these things. So like, there comes a point where it's like your opportunities are sort of in direct correlation to your sort of skill set at the time, or your craftsmanship at the time. So it's like you have to be lucky enough, yes, that there is a part of that someone is looking for the thing and they happen to mention you, their brain, you know what I mean? Like whatever that is, but then for you to be able to hold a gig or fulfill the job well, that's on you. That part is on you. But all the other stuff, puppets.
This couch is so loud. I'm not flatulating through this whole thing. Or maybe I am. I don't know.
I am too, so.
If we can talk about that side of it, that kind of high level side, are there weird interactions, or I guess weird's subjective, memorable interactions of things that you just don't see on the other side of the industry, like dealing with certain individuals? That just seems to be a common theme. We're dealing with weird situations that you just never think about until you're in those moments.
Yeah, it's sort of, in my mind, eccentricities are sort of amplified at that level. It's like you're sort of rewarded for being like just weird. You know what I mean? Man, that guy did that right before his session. Or he does this on the road. Like, that's weird. But like, that's him. That's his thing. You know what I mean? Versus if you're kind of working on the local level, it's like, no, that guy's like, he's just weird. You know what I mean?
We don't have to get specific.
No, yeah, I would never name drop on the bad side of it. It's like more okay if you're weirder on a high level, because it's like
it becomes like an artist personality,
right? Like Kanye. Like, yeah, that's just him. But you still want to work with him. Versus if you're trying to track and the guy's like, hey man, before I take any takes on drums, I have to do 50 push-ups and meditate, and you know what I mean, which would be fine. But if you did it every take, you're like, it's kind of weird, but that's his thing.
That's a lot of push-ups.
Yeah.
Getting to like the business side, when you're a professional in any industry, especially ours, I feel like you have to have, maybe you don't have to have, that's a weird way to say it. I find income streams, like, yes, they're through music, but there's all sorts of different ways to make money with music. What has been your experience with that? Do you have making money recording, touring? Like, what are some of the things that maybe some people don't think about in relationships that they can start to kind of create income, or income that generates from odd places?
Yeah, so my sort of thing that I'm trying to gun for is like having between 5 and 7 like different streams of income. And as many of those can be passive, that's my goal. So royalties, getting on as many basically on as many songs as I can, and taking maybe small percents, and then also being paid to record and mix and produce it. So that's kind of like a twofer, where one is passive and one isn't. Another one is taking maybe beats and songs or tracks, any pieces of things, and putting them together, putting them on and sample packs of sounds that I find myself using a lot. I just released my first one a couple months ago that are like sort of like kind of like, I call it night drive. It's for like kind of like nighttime R&B kind of samples that I find myself using a lot. Touring, yep. So that's the way I have it set up. Is it's just per show, so it's not exactly the most stable thing, because that could go quickly. So it's not salary, but then I'm also not sort of tied to the salary position of, you know, an artist. So yeah, so those are right now like the very small few that I'm doing. It's primarily recording and producing. That's a majority of it.
And this is like the most unflattering way I could sit in this couch too. What am I doing? Fun side. There may not be an answer to this question. If you can think
There's no fun in doing music.
What's one thing from a mix standpoint, as a mixer, have started doing recently? Is there like a new process you're like, well, I like this, I've added this to my template, here, a new plugin or a new technique or something?
Yes. My new technique is sort of like a bastardization of how Chris Lord Alge sort of mixes his vocals and sort of all of his instruments, where instead of, it's called, I think he goes like the 4x4 or something like that. Basically it's 4 reverbs, 4 delays. And he has it on an SSL desk. So the way that I had to sort of set it up was by sends. And so now my template has a short room, a big plate, huge hall. And then the reverbs are slap, quarter, eighth, and like tape. Or that's sort of slap. What's the other one? Anyway, like a room, like a club, like a Ursa sort of thing, like a pingy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you take different parts of, you know, you send different things. So I have like a little fader port 16 thing, and so I'm deciding how much to send each to whatever. And that has just absolutely changed the way that I mix vocals and stuff, specifically vocals. And then you send also the delays, pieces of the delays into my Bercaster lexicon too. So there's also the reverb on the delay so that it doesn't sound like an exact copy. It sounds a little bit, you know.
Do you have a hardware Bricasti? Oh.
It's an IR.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a second. You just blew past that so fast.
Yeah. 480.
Let me just flex for a second.
Yeah. Told you, dude. No, they're essentially all IRs. I almost work almost exclusively on the box.
As much as I like hardware, I do feel like that is the ultimate flexibility.
It's the best.
And if there's one thing that I feel like I've learned from hardware, it's to learn what something sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
Like having an 1176 and knowing what 1176 sounds like, and then you don't need it anymore.
Absolutely.
There are those one pieces I just can't get rid of yet.
And I think if it does that thing and you know, or you can't replace it, or you haven't figured it out, or you don't care to, just leave it. Mm-hmm. But if you can replace it, replace it.
Yeah.
100%.
Nothing wrong with working in the box. Nothing wrong with working in hardware.
No way.
Do whatever works for you.
Absolutely. And a lot of people are doing hybrids. If they were more analog, whatever, or whichever way they came, they're at least finding the sort of the best of both worlds. I'm big on the Hoffa. The actual name of the plugin is escaping me. The idea is that you take a recording and you split it. One goes to the plugin 1176 and one goes to your real 1176. But it's from the same performance, same cables. You can get as technical as you want. And then this plugin, you basically feed it both takes and it'll shuffle them. And then you have to pick out which one is, this is the 1170, the real one, and this is the CLA one. And if you can't decide what it, which is which over half the time to get rid of your 1176, you know what I mean?
But it forces you into like a blind shootout.
Actually, I think it's called blind test. Yeah.
By Hoffa.
It's enabled me to get rid of a lot of things.
You may have just obliterated my hardware collection.
Well, it'll make your pockets a little bit fatter for sure. Because I was able to get rid of a lot of gear. And so now that desk that I bought from you is looking pretty barren. Like it's just going like the units are getting closer to me as there's only a few of them, So, I mean, there are some things that I've kept just for like tracking reasons. Like I did actually keep my 1176 clone and my LA28 just for tracking a little bit. But some of the more colored units, my idea is import something, process it how you like it with, whatever box, and then it's sort of like try to emulate it with as many plugins as it takes. So if you can get pretty close with, maybe an exciter and this and, whatever, and if you can get close to that sound and then not, and then also not be able to pick it out of the lineup, it's like,
yeah, what's the point?
Just do all that then. You know what I mean? It might be 4 or 5 plugins, just create a channel of it. Then it's like, oh, it does this thing, But it's mobile. That's the reason of why I really like the box. Mm-hmm. Because if I'm on the road touring and I'm also trying to come home and record and then take things on the road with me and work in hotels and
you could work literally anywhere.
And it's like, you're wrong. It's whatever.
That's insane.
It's a great idea because every time we listen to something, if we know what we're listening to, it's just kind of like the loudness thing where it's like, if it's louder, it's gonna sound better to us, and that's why we gain match with the output or input of whatever plugin we're using. So then you can A/B it. I saw this. I don't know if this is like relevant necessarily, but I saw this study that they did MRI brain scans of people's brains, and they would give them, hey, this is a really wine, and then how good of an experience you have. Now here's a really nice one, and then their brain basically it lit up when they had a sip of the whatever, the good stuff, their brain lit up a lot more. And then they switched the labels and gave it to a different, I think, group of people. Mm-hmm. Their brains lit up for the switched label. Your brain will manufacture the experience that it sort of wants to have. Mm-hmm. I feel like the same thing is for audio. It's like, look, I'm running it through my $4,000 Neve thing.
Yeah.
And it sounds better. But if you weren't able to pick it out, then it's kind of like, you're playing games on yourself, I
feel like a lot of plugin manufacturers know that. And how many compressors do you pull up that automatically have the gain reduction turned up or the output turned up 2 dB?
Right.
So before you start doing anything, like it sounds great.
It makes it louder.
It's just a little louder.
It's like if you want to saturate or something, like try to gain headroom, cool. But if you're trying to trick people, not cool.
Yeah. Or trick yourself, even worse.
Absolutely.
So if you were going to give like the obligatory one piece of advice to somebody starting who's like, I want to do what you do. Where the heck do I start?
Where do you start? Well, where you start sort of implies that you know where you want to finish. So if you know what you want to go towards, then you should probably work on all the things that you think will get you. Basically what I'm saying is, if you want to be a drummer, obviously you need to know rudiments and you need to know this and that and all those sorts of things. So there's like the craft stuff of it, but then it's also what you do with your extra time. And I feel like, if you're a kid and you want to play the drums and you're playing too much video games, take a break from the video games and practice. That's like probably my biggest advice. But then also it's, especially in the touring world, is like be kind, like be a good hang, be a nice person, take care of yourself, care about how other people feel. Those kinds of things will enable you to also hold, A, it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And then B, it'll help you hold these gigs and get more things, because if people want to be around you and you're good at what you do, it's like, that's like a double threat. And I think it's important too. So I think that's major. Like, I think you should work on yourself just as much as your craft. And then how you handle like what you do with your free time is major. So if you work a job and then you come home and you're really, really tired, well, maybe try to push through that and use an hour every night, research or read about something you want to learn that's going to help you get to your finish. But I mean, that's all I did. So that's the advice that I give. I don't want to try to give advice that I didn't do or haven't done or wouldn't do.
Even on the key of being like a cool person and a good hang, like there's players even in my little world that I don't hire back. Like maybe they're the greatest drummer or the greatest keys player, but they don't get calls back because they're hard to work with or they're combative in some way. Like if you're a good hang and you produce like just good vibes, because what we're doing is so emotional and so vibey anyway.
Yeah.
If you're working with artists, like
Exactly.
I would rather have the person who's kind and nice and makes a good environment rather than a technically perfect player.
Absolutely.
Every time.
Absolutely. And usually the people that we're talking about, the people that are good hangs, they've already surpassed the sort of level of like acceptability in, whatever field they're in. Like that guy is a good enough guitar player. He is. Like, he's not the best. So if you're not the best, then you better be the coolest. You know what I mean? I've heard that story a million times with people that hire for tours or run studios just like this.
Last question from the tiny couch. If you could talk to Kelson 10 years ago, 15 years ago, knowing what you know now, knowing what you knew then, what's like one thing you would say to yourself?
Ooh, so 20-year-old, what I say to 20-year-old Kelson? Yeah, keep staying true to what you feel in your heart you want to do, and don't let anyone tell you, and usually it's your parents at that age. And luckily my parents were a pretty good breed of fostering the music and arts in me, but also but you need to be safe and have a job and that. So they were great, but I also did a lot of things like withdraw from school and, some other things that parents aren't thrilled to hear their kids do. So just keep on your track, learn the things you want to learn, because that is what life is about, is doing things, being kind to people, helping people. And by doing what you're supposed to be doing and doing it like nicely is, I think, there's a big reason of why we're here is because of those things. We're supposed to do the things that bring us joy and do it nicely. I really think that. So
I can get behind that.
Me too.
Well, guys, there's another Tiny Couch interview for you. Thank you to Kelson. Go check him out. Can I link?
Yeah.
Give me a link to your samples. We'll put those in the description. You want to check those out? Go check him out.
KelsonCamp.com. It's my link tree. So
there you go. That's as easy as it gets.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else you want to say? Do it again.
I don't remember what I was saying. Do your little outro thing, because I went Kelson.
That's all of it. Anyway, guys, I'm Resident Loser Jeremy. Hit the like button if you like it. Hit that subscribe button. These are all the super annoying things that I have to say at the end of every video. I'll see you next time.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment.